There are times in your life where you don't just want a better job, but you need one. I spoke with a guy named Tim in Virginia, IT contractor for Booz Allen, making $115,000 a year. He was doing pretty good, but like most contracts, this one ended. And it wasn't the only thing ending in his life. He was also going through a tough divorce. He was in his late 40s. We had a couple of conversations. He decided he was going to give federal government jobs a shot. He was not going to stop applying to the private sector, though, because that's what he knew. Some of the attractive parts of the private sector, number one, there's more job opportunities. Number two, the hiring process goes a whole lot faster. And number three, they can pay higher in salaries. For a person with no experience and no idea about the federal hiring process, the whole thing looks like a Rubik's Cube. It looks like a puzzle. Why even bother? You got more important things to do with your life. Throw that puzzle to the side. But there are attractive things about the public sector as well. Number one is security, stability, a pension. So we identified his job series, which was the 2210 IT management, with the focus on application software. This lined up perfectly with what he was doing in his IT contractor job. He wanted to target GS12 to GS13, and that puts you at a salary range of $100,000 to $153,000 a year. Before he started applying, I took a peek at his resume. I could clearly see it was going to have success in the private sector. This resume was tailor-made for the private sector. One pager, that was it. But that same resume was not going to get him a referral. Not even one referral if he were to apply to a federal government job. That resume needed to be updated. It needed to be tailored. It needed to show more details, show his success stories that he had in his last position. All that stuff, it was missing. There were too many bullets like help migrate website and content to Drupal. That is too simple. It lacks the details. Instead, he needed to focus on what he did. How did he do it? What was the result? And then try to quantify it. This took about 2 hours to transform that private sector resume into a federal resume. After that, he was good to go. This was September 2023. He was good to start applying, but he only applied once or twice a week. And I said, hey, Tim, what are we doing, man? The key to this game is volume. You have to hit the site with volume. And he didn't want to do that. He was still mainly focused with the private sector jobs. Now, volume doesn't mean just apply to just random jobs. You still need a focus. His focus was 2210, and then we focused down even more than that by looking at application software. You can see in the OPM handbook that 2210, there's 11 different specialties here, from policy and planning to customer support. You can find this handbook by doing a Google search. Type in OPM Job Series Handbook 2018. So each one of these 11 specialties, they have a description. They have examples of work experience that would make you eligible for a typical job in that sector. You want that language in your resume. So in November, he started applying 2 times a day. By January, he applied 56 times, 35 referrals, 4 interviews, 2 job offers. The total time to hire was about 5 months. It could have been a lot sooner if he would have started applying in volume earlier. But come March, he accepted a job at the Department of Defense. This was a GS-13 job, and he negotiated to step 6. His salary is now $137,000 a year. And with performance bonuses, he should exceed $140,000 a year. Now in Tim's case, we negotiated step level. You should probably negotiate your step level if the agency will allow you. A lot of people don't want to do this. A lot of people are scared about negotiating step level because they feel like it can prolong the hiring process. And it can. It can do it by a few weeks. It can do it by over a month. The question in your head is it worth it, right? Every step is roughly $3,000 or more dollars. So if you're talking about 10 steps, you're talking potentially $30,000. Is that worth 2 or 3 additional months? It could be in your circumstance, but you need to ask yourself that question. Coming into the government, GS-12 to GS-15, that puts you in at 6 figures a year. There's some pay bands that can put you over $200,000 a year. And there are people throughout this country that live in smaller towns. When they hear numbers like that, like 200,000, they think it's impossible. Well, if you stay in Louisiana or Arkansas, it probably is impossible because of a thing called GS grade inflation. In larger cities, GS positions tend to be rated higher. Now look, we could do an example right here. This job announcement, this is for a 0343. This is a program analyst, and it's between GS5 and GS9, or $39,000 to $77,000 a year. This same job, program analyst, in DC or Northern Virginia or Maryland, this would be a GS11 or GS12, could even be a GS13. Now, people out there in Nebraska, in Arkansas, GS13, that's a chief. That's the deputy director. That's somebody in charge of a lot. But in Washington, D.C., that's just a guy sitting in a cubicle is a GS13 a lot of the times. This is because of a cost of living difference, and also you're probably working in the headquarters building. The exception to this is 100% remote work jobs. Most remote work jobs you find on usajobs.gov, they're GS11 or higher. And you can do that in the foothills of Kentucky or in Arkansas or wherever you would like. All right, so Tim was pretty excited to go ahead and accept this job. He was looking forward to starting his first day. But then came the security clearance requirement. And DoD has a lot of jobs that require secret clearance or even top secret clearance. So he felt discouraged by this and decided he was going to accept a private sector job. He did. He accepted a job at another contracting company. He started working there for 3 weeks, and then he heard back from DoD. DoD said they were going to give him an interim clearance so he could start working immediately. He was surprised, but this happens often. Usually, the government will do an NACI basic background check. If that comes back clean, they'll be prepared to offer you an interim clearance. This depends on the agency, on their policies, on what type of classified documents might be around your area. But a lot of times, they'll get people to start working, which means you can start earning earlier. Tim is still dealing with a lot of stress in his life right now. But after working over 3 decades, he's finally working towards a federal pension, something the private sector could never offer him. They gave him a 401k, and he's taking that, he's rolling it over to the TSP, the Thrift Savings Plan. The thing with Tim is, he was thinking about joining the government for over 10 years. It was always in the back of his mind, but he never took action. Until he started getting older and things started to kind of fall apart, that's when he decided to make the jump. Thousands of people throughout the country, they're experiencing the same thing that Tim went through. And if you're sitting there right now in your late 20s or your 30s, I would encourage you to take the jump earlier. Get into the federal government now. Get fully vested. 5 years is all it takes. After 5 years, you have your pension. Many people end up working in the private sector until they can't do it anymore. And once they're finally kicked out of there, they're left with a 401k that maybe, if you're lucky, it has $100,000 in the balance. And that's not going to take you very far. That's going to take you 2 years if you're lucky. And then you're going to be looking at Social Security. Is that going to still be around? Start considering the public sector options. Look at government jobs. Where does your experience line up with? And if you're new to this whole thing, you want to know, what's the federal hiring process? What does it mean to get referred? The interview? When do I get the job offer? What's the timeline? If you have questions like that on your mind, I want you to watch this video next. If you would like to see more videos like this, please click like and subscribe. Thank you so much for watching. I'll see you in the next one.